Okay, welcome to creating accessible PDFs with Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. My name is Audrey Homan. I'm with the UVM Office of Accessibility Services. So today we're going to be going over some document accessibility universals, and then we're going to step through the process of creating a PDF from a Microsoft document. We're going to do this in 3 sections. We're going to take it as a one long process. So we're going to start at the start, and then we're going to talk about accessibility as you go along, and finally we're going to finish up with before you export. Now, document accessibility universals. These are items that you will need to pay attention to for creating accessible PDFs. They pertain to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and they should carry you through to most of your accessible document situations. Now, the biggest one that we would recommend is you want to bake accessibility in right from the start. On the screen, I have a comic by the inclusive designer Brian Parsons, and it's a 2-panel comic. On the left panel, 2 people are making blueberry muffins the traditional way. They are pouring blueberries into a bowl of batter. They both seem pretty happy with this process. And on the right side of the comic, we see a panel where the same 2 people are trying to shove blueberries into fully baked muffins. There are exploding muffins, there are blueberries going everywhere. One of the people is crying. So, which seems like the more enjoyable experience to you? I personally know that blueberry muffins come out better when I try to put the blueberries into the batter and then bake it, rather than trying to make the blueberries fit in afterwards. This may be a metaphor for accessibility. In fact, it is a metaphor for accessibility. It is much easier and less expensive and more efficient if you start with accessibility rather than leaving it to the end. This is also known as the shift left theory of accessibility. So, on screen, I have the 3 steps that are generally considered when making a PDF. You start by creating a source document in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. Then you export that document to a PDF. And finally, you share the PDF. And when you share the PDF, some people will get back to you and say, hey, this isn't accessible for me. And at that point, you go into your PDF and you fix it. So shifting left for success means we're going to create a source document in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint and make that source document accessible right at the beginning. And then when we export it to a PDF, we know that it is going to be accessible. Again, shifting left for success, building in the accessibility right from the beginning is going to make your process easier, more efficient, and less expensive. Now, one of the considerations, a accessibility fundamental, is different horses for different courses. And that means that you want to start with the most appropriate software for what you're trying to create. If you're working with text and data, you probably want to be in Microsoft Word. If you are creating spreadsheets that you know you want to share as PDFs, you want to be in Excel. If you're working with slides, you're creating a slide deck to accompany a talk, for instance, you're probably going to put those slides together in PowerPoint. And if you are doing a full-scale graphic design, like for an annual report or a brochure, mailing card, postcard, then you're probably in Adobe InDesign. And that is beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, because those PDFs require things that are very specific to Adobe InDesign only. And I have newsletters on here because 2 of my favorite newsletter clients are MailChimp and BeFree. Because I see a lot of folks trying to make newsletters with Microsoft Word, getting all complicated with columns and swoopy graphic design and embedding lots of things that are probably going to require a little bit more time and effort to make accessible. And that's why I'm recommending that you start with the source software that's going to require the least amount of effort for you to make it accessible. Also, at UVM, we have the Qualtrics system available to us for free. And Qualtrics forms are, by their nature, much more accessible than creating forms in, say, Microsoft Word and then trying to make that an accessible PDF. So, different horses for different courses. That's an expression that means use the correct tool for the correct situation. If you are a horse fan, you may think of this as, would you take your eventing horse into a dressage competition? You probably would not do that. Or you would, but only if you weren't trying to win. Okay, this is what the Office of Accessibility Services has come up with as an accessible document checklist consisting of accessibility fundamentals. And we've broken this checklist up into three sections. Things you do at the start of creating an accessible document, things you do as you go along, building that accessible document, adding content, and things you do just before you export to ensure that document's accessibility. Again, we're focused in this talk on source software and the source documents you use to create PDFs. So we are focused right at the very left of the process where we're working on making the most accessible source document possible. Something we're not going to cover today is document remediation. Once you have a PDF that you know has accessibility issues and you have to go into Adobe Acrobat to fix that PDF. We're not going to cover that today. We're focused on the left. We're shifting left for accessibility and working on our source documents. So there are two types of items in our accessibility checklist. The items that are highlighted are what's going to make an accessibility checker give you a passing score. They are at the start of your process, you want to set the language of the document and fill out the document properties. As you go, the document will have nested headings where H1 comes before an H2, which comes before an H3, which comes before an H4, which comes before an H5. And you're using actual headings and not just bolding text. And then before you export, you're adding a table of contents for any document that is 7 pages or longer, and you are running the automated accessibility checker. These are the items that are going to make an automated accessibility checker give you a passing score. At the same time, these other items, the document accessibility fundamentals, are what's going to make PDFs truly accessible. They're not things that an automated checker will necessarily pick up on, especially when you're working in Microsoft Office Suite, but they are things that are going to help you create and distribute very accessible PDFs. They are. At the start of the process, you're going to create a meaningful file name that has no spaces in it. And you're going to make sure your body font is set to a minimum size of 12 points. As you go along, you're going to ensure that your document has only one H1, only one heading 1, and that is your title. And then before you export, you're checking to make sure there are no empty links. Empty links are links where you can't tell where you're going just from the format of the link. The classic example is click here, click here, click here. You can't tell where you're clicking away to. You're going to make sure that meaningful images have meaningful alt text. We're going to talk a little bit more about meaningful versus decorative images. And you're not going to use images of text without all of the text, every single letter appearing elsewhere. So those two classes are the things that make up our accessible document checklist. We want you to have access to the accessible document checklist in a hurry, at the ready, trying to make it convenient. You can scan the QR code that's currently on screen in order to download a printable PDF that has 3 of these accessible document checklists separated by little cut lines, cute little scissor icons. You print those out and then cut them into 3 pieces, and you've got a bunch of small accessible document checklists that are paper to work with. I'm a big paper and pen guy. I love to be able to just fill in a checkbox with a pen. Makes me feel like I've accomplished something for the day. So you can make sure that you come away from this workshop with a copy of this checklist. And these are the printable ones in case you are, like me, a big pen and paper fan. You can also grab them by going to go.ubm.edu/accessibility-checklist. Okay, let's jump into making our source documents accessible. Right at the start. First of all, you're going to want to set your document language. We have thumbnails down in the bottom right for this presentation as we step through each of the items because we're going to cover everything that's on the accessible document checklist in order. So at the start, then as we go along, and then before you export. So you'll be able to see which section of the list we are talking about. Right now, we're at the very start. We're setting the document language. You do this in Word and Excel by going to Tools and then going to choosing the language option in the Tools menu. And in PowerPoint, you want to go to the Tools drop-down menu and choose Set Proofing Language. I have a screenshot from Word here that shows what you're going to be confronted by when you make this choice in Word. We do this because think about the OS of the machine or device you're currently working on. Are you on a Mac laptop? Are you watching this video on your phone? Is it an Android phone? Is it an iOS phone? Are you on a Dell laptop? Are you projecting to the TV? So every OS is different, and all of them have a way to set the language that they're working in. So I generally speak English, and so I am on a laptop where the OS is set to display everything in English. Um, if I was working in Hebrew, the OS would be very, very different. The big thing that would be different about it is you're working with a completely different alphabet. English is read left to right, Hebrew is read right to left. There are different diacritic marks, those tiny dots and dashes that occur near letters to indicate different pronunciations, different lengths of the letters. They're very different between English and Hebrew. So you think about other people who are maybe working on a Dell laptop where they have it set to Spanish, or they are on their Android phone and they're using Cyrillic, the alphabet that you use for Russian, for instance. So setting the language of your document allows both an OS and a screen reader to know which set of rules to apply to the document. So screen readers work the same way as the OS in that they need to consult a specific set of rules to determine how to deal with text. So you're going to need to set the language of the document. Next up, you are going to save your work. Don't let your work get destroyed by forgetting to save. So just save right off the bat. And when you do, you want to give your document a meaningful file name. Don't use spaces. Just use dashes or underscores between the words. Don't use any non-alphabet characters like a question mark, an exclamation point, apostrophe, an asterisk, or my personal favorite, the ampersand, that beautiful English language curvy boy that takes the place of the word and. So those can make it more difficult for an OS or screen readers to locate a particular file within a user's filing system. The date formats can be read differently in different contexts. So here in the United States, we generally write, if we're going to say month, month, day, day, year, 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 that to us makes a lot of sense. Hey, that set of numbers has the month first and then the day and then the year. In the United Kingdom, you would have day, day, month, month, year, 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 because you would expect the days to come first. And so if you, for instance, have the numbers 0312 2024, that's going to read as two completely different dates in those two countries. But if you start with the year, all four numbers of the year, then a dash, then the two numbers for the month, then a dash, then the two numbers for the day, this will sort correctly in all file systems internationally. So that's what you want to use in your file name. And you want to get in the habit of using version numbers instead of final. It's never final. That's just a tip that's going to help save you a lot of heartache in the long run when you have worked 70 hours on a piece and somebody comes rushing through your door at the nth hour with like one more change and you have to call your file final, very final. No, really, I mean it this time. Just use version numbers. Just append a different number to the end of your file name and you can just go through however many you need. Okay, you're also going to fill out the document properties of any Microsoft Office document. So these are, regardless of which Microsoft software you're using, they're under File, Properties, and a dialog box will open up. You want to go to the Summary tab, and you are going to fill out title with a meaningful title name. You can use spaces in this title name within this window. You could use strange characters if you want, but then Adobe may not always understand what you're up to. I would just go with words and letters. You're going to add as the author your department or unit, and you're going to add as the manager your very own self. You do this so that when people with disabilities are using assistive technology, their assistive technology has the best chance of understanding the document. This is metadata for the document. And the title field in particular is something that the PDF UA International Standard for Accessibility of PDFs, it's a field that checker for the standard is looking for in particular. So just get it out of the way and get it done right at the start. Now, we're going to want a body font that has a minimum size of 12 points. Excel has an exception here in that you're going to have to manually set it yourself. The way you do that is when you have a new workbook, you're going to go up to the very top left, and there is a perfectly square box to the left of the A column and above the number 1 row. If you click on that, it will highlight the entire worksheet. It's like a select all button. And then you want to use the drop down menu above the actual workbook to choose a font that will let you be at minimum, I would say 12 points. You can take care of the size of your font in PowerPoint by simply using a pre-made theme. Choose one that PowerPoint has already gone through and taken all of the accessibility challenges out of. It can be super fun to create your own theme and to choose all your different colors, all your different fonts. Just keep messing with it until it's gorgeous and perfect. And I see you creative people who have a lot of free time out there. That totally seems like a good idea. But for accessibility, you're going to save yourself a lot of effort by simply choosing one of the pre-made themes here. You go into the design ribbon and choose one that pops up underneath the design ribbon, or you can just use the default UVM PowerPoint theme because a lot of work went into making that accessible from the get-go. In Word, you want to go to Home, Styles, and open up the Style pane. And it has a style called Normal. This is your body font. And you can choose all kinds of formatting for your body font. You here can set it to be a minimum of size of 12 points. You can choose different fonts that you might want to experiment with. You probably don't want the entire body of your document to be bold or italic. That's going to cause some eye strain for people. I'm also going to draw your attention here to the information in the screenshot that I have on screen, which it's showing the coding that goes into saving a font, and it's talking about it sets the body, describes the type of font, and then it says it's a left to right font. So we're dealing with an English language document, and that's where that got set when we chose English as the language for the document. You are working here with the styles pane, and you want to go ahead and modify your normal style as your body font. Make sure it's 12-point minimum. Okay, we are all set to add our content to the source document. So let's look at what we can do to build in accessibility as we build in content to our document. So in Word only, you're going to use the style pane to add headings. We just had it open so we can make our normal font, our body font, 12 points minimum. Now we are going to, you want to add a title. Remember, we're only having one heading one in every document, and that's our title. So you choose the title from the styles pane. Again, styles is up under the home ribbon. If you go home, styles, and then choose the styles pane, it will just stay open as you're editing the document, which can be really, really handy. Your headings as you go through should be nested. So you just have that one heading one for the title, and then give a heading two that can be section titles. Heading three can be subsection titles. Heading four, subsection, subsections. The big thing is that you want them to be nested. So one comes before two, comes before three. You don't want to go straight from a heading two to a heading four. That will cause an error in your automated accessibility checker. It will not pass the accessibility test. So, as an example of how you want to use this to structure your content, say you were writing a book about cheese, and your book is called A Brief History of Cheese. That's going to be your title. That's what you're going to put as your heading one. And you've got to talk about every single cheese there is in this world. You're going to be here for a while with this book, but you start by creating a section for the hard cheeses. Now, you don't want to go jump straight from hard cheeses to a section about white cheddar in particular. You want to break up your hard cheeses into different sections. So, right now we might be in the cheddar section. Tomorrow we could be in the Parmesan section. But right now we're in cheddar, and that's where you would file white cheddar and extra sharp cheddar and sharp cheddar. All of these would be types of cheddar, so they would go in the cheddar section. It's a lot like writing a book and deciding which of the chapters and sections you're going to put things in. Again, every Word document has just one heading one, and that is the title. Now, as you go along, you may want to use an automated color contrast checker. Uh, the Office of Accessibility Services strongly recommends the TPGI Color Contrast Analyzer. The Color Contrast Analyzer lets you automatically calculate the contrast ratio between your text and your background, as well as the contrast ratio between graphics and their backgrounds. Accessibility requirements specify that small text, which in this case is going to be your body text, must have a color contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1. Large text and graphic and icons must have a contrast ratio of at least 3 to 1. And what this tool will do is you'll be able to use eyedroppers to go and sample different colors of combinations you've put together. This whole presentation is in a delightful combination of deep purple text against a light mint green background. And so I went through and I sampled to make sure that that would have enough color contrast so that people who are working with different types of color blindness, people who are low vision in its entirety, have at least a chance to make out the text against its background. The other thing that's fun about the TPGI color contrast analyzer is that if your color combination does not meet the requirements, it has little sliders that you can slide back and forth so that you can preview what acceptable color contrasts would look like. This is free software. You download it and install it on your machine. It doesn't care if you're Windows or Mac, and you can just pop it open and use it in all sorts of software. So you can use it with all the Microsofts. You can use it when you're building web pages. You can use it when you're in Adobe Illustrator. It's standalone software. Okay, you have added content. Maybe you've written an entire book about cheese because you got up early today. So what are we going to do for accessibility before you export to a PDF? We're going to do a couple last checks of your source document before you export. Okay, first of all, you're going to double check your links. You want to do this anyway to make sure all your links work and none of them are broken. But add on to that you're going to check to make sure none of them are empty links. Again, empty links are ones where it's impossible to say where you're going. Click here. Why not say register online for the next workshop and have register online be the link? That way people will know, hey, I'm going to a registration page. Instead of click here, you could say learn more about upcoming accessibility workshops and make upcoming accessibility workshops the link. And then people would know that when they click that link, they're going to find out more information about workshops. Instead of click here, you could have subscribe to the OAS newsletter. Make that a link, and then people will know they're going to a subscription page. So just remove click here from your vocabulary, because if you think about people who are just using screen readers to access links, they get to hear click here, click here, click here, click here all day. And it gets really old and it's hard to tell if they're going to enjoy the content that they're going to get when they click. Same thing for your sighted people who are just navigating through vision. I want to know more about what's going to happen when I click that link. I have a finite amount of time on this earth. I want to make sure that I'm going to click the link that I want to go take me to the place that's going to let me do the task I have in mind. Now, images and alt text. Meaningful images need meaningful alt text. You, for your alt text, want to include 1 to 3 short descriptive sentences. Concise, active voice. Think of all the images, if you are a sighted person, that you have looked at online or in documents today. Is it more than 10? Is it more than 20? More than 50? Okay. If you are someone working with a screen reader, how many images have you listened to today? And each one of those has a description, hopefully. So for each of those, think you're hearing 1 to 3 descriptive sentences. So you want to keep them short and concise. When you are deciding what to describe in an image, you want to describe the main action of the image, not the wallpaper. Imagine for a moment that you are using an image of a polar bear standing in a cozy, overstuffed living room with beautiful William Morris wallpaper, and on the rug at the feet of the polar bear is a man who may or may not be injured, dead, or simply asleep. What are you going to spend your 1 to 3 short descriptive sentences on? Are you going to spend them on the design on the wallpaper, or are you going to spend them on the fact that there's a polar bear in the living room? I feel like we need to know about the polar bear more than we need to know about the beautiful William Morris wallpaper. And I'm a big fan of William Morris wallpaper. I think it's delightful to stare at. But I'm also, in this situation, concerned about the man lying on the rug at the feet of the polar bear. Is the polar bear angry? Is the polar bear mid-attack? Is the polar bear hungry? Is he wearing a monocle? I must know. It is not a real-world photo. Identify the type of image at the beginning of your alt text. This lets folks who are using a screen reader have a little bit more context to be able to picture for themselves what you're sharing. So, things that are not real-world photos include screenshots, line drawings, bar graphs, pie charts, photorealistic depictions, photoshopped depictions, cartoons, thumbnails. All of these are important for people who are listening to this description to be able to gauge the importance of the image and to be able to potentially understand how the image relates to the rest of the document. And you don't need to include image of in your alt text because all screen readers begin their descriptions with image of as a default. If you also say image of, your screen reader users are going to hear image of a polar bear in a monocle standing over a man in a rug. You also want to make images of text usable text. So by usable, I mean text that is selectable, copy pastable, announceable, and spell checkable. So I have a comic on screen. It's a 3-panel comic from the comic XKCD. And comics have action, characters, and dialogue. And all the text in the dialogue needs to be replicated someplace else where a person could select it. to copy paste it, to look up the words, to feed it to their screen reader to double check the spelling. Any text that you have that's inside an image isn't accessible. You have to make sure it appears somewhere else as text that can be interacted with by the user in some way. For any documents that are 7 pages or longer, you want to insert a table of contents. This also goes for Excel documents. If your Excel document is 7 pages or longer, you also want to use a table of contents. But PowerPoint documents don't need tables of contents because the PDF that results from them, PowerPoint is going to use the bookmarks that it creates from images of the slides that you're creating to make its own table of contents. But in Word, you're going to insert a table of contents for any document 7 pages or longer. And then finally, you're almost done. You're almost finished with this beautiful PDF. Your book about cheese is going to revolutionize the field of books about cheese. We are so close. So you're going to use the Microsoft Accessibility Checker. It is available in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It is in the same place in all 3 types of software. It is on the review ribbon and it's called Check Accessibility. So what you want to do is go to the review ribbon and then click on Check Accessibility. And that is going to open up a column down the right side of your document that is going to give you a lot of different instructions as to everything that you need to finish up to make your source document accessible before you export. If something needs fixing, the Microsoft Accessibility Checker is absolutely going to tell you how to fix it. So when you have this accessibility checker open, if it has things that it needs you to fix, it's going to have a message at the top that says, keep going. Fix the remaining issues in the document to make it accessible to everyone. And underneath that message is going to be a series of sections of different types of errors. If there is an error, you're going to see a number next to the description of the error. If there is not an error, you're going to see a check mark inside a circle. That check mark inside a circle means you are good to go for that section. In the screenshot we're using right here, it says keep going. We got some errors to take care of. Okay. Color contrast, I've got this check mark inside the circle. I'm good to go. But under media and illustrations, I am missing the alt text for one image. So I need to click on missing the alt text and then follow the instructions there. A lot of it will be images. You can build into your workflow that you want to do all your alt text at the end. You can go through and do it as you go. But a lot of them are that you're going to want to revisit your alt text, make sure it's accurate. Additionally, let's talk about decorative images. Sometimes you just want to make a little decoration on a page, and it's not necessary for people to be able to spend a lot of time on your image in order to understand the content. So I've got a screenshot here of an accessible document checklist in Word. I've got a set of checkboxes, and then underneath I put a little compass rose drawing because I was feeling it. I just thought it looked cute there. And the accessibility checker is telling me that compass rose is missing alt text. Underneath where I would write the alt text, there's an option to mark as decorative. I would mark that compass rose as decorative because it's not meaningful to understand the document. You don't need the compass rose to understand the document because it's an accessibility document checklist. Um, it doesn't contribute anything beyond being really pretty. So I'd mark it as decorative. Other errors the accessibility checker may draw your attention to include table errors. All tables need headers. Microsoft is going to walk you through this, whether you're in Word or PowerPoint, it's going to walk you through fixing these table errors. Merge cells are always an issue. Figure out if you really need to merge cells, but if you do, don't be surprised if the accessibility checker pops up and is like, hey, I see you're merging some cells. I'd like to talk to you about your choices. Slide titles, that's a PowerPoint only issue, obviously, because we generally work with slides in PowerPoint. Every slide needs a unique and distinctive title. If you, for instance, have 2 slides that are both titled welcome to Accessible World, then the accessibility checker is going to make you change one of them. Again, PowerPoint is going to use your slides to make bookmarks. It's going to take care of headings that way for you. And so it's wanting to make sure that it's creating unique and usable headings. Document access. Documents need to remain unlocked and editable in order to be truly accessible PDFs. So the accessibility checker is going to remind you of this. This is a requirement of the PDF UA International Standards. And you might get a color contrast error notification. You just work with it, use the tools at your disposal, choose different colors, play with your sliders, come up with better color combinations. Okay, every single error has a pretty detailed set of instructions for you to follow. So on the left, I have a screenshot of the error message you might get from only having auto-generated alt text. You're going to need to review and approve or edit every single image's alt text. It is 2026. I have yet to see an AI-generated alt text that made a lick of sense. I think that it's going to improve? Yes. I think that say within 2 years that AI will be able to generate pretty effective alt text descriptions. But right now is not that time. So you want to review and write your own alt text. And the other error message I have a screenshot of here is that missing slide title. So it's from PowerPoint, because we're working as slides. It says clear and meaningful slide titles aid users in effective navigation and understanding. Try either adding a slide title or adding a hidden slide title. If you work a lot in PowerPoint, you know that you can write a sneaky little slide title and then stash it behind an image or change the text the same color and just hide it. You can mark it as hidden. I like visible, clear slide titles. So does the accessibility checker. Okay, you want to work through the accessibility checker and resolve each and every one of your errors. Every single one. You want nothing but little check marks inside circles. And when you've gotten it all done, you'll get the message, looks good, no issues found. And that's when you know that you got through the whole thing. That's when you want to export. So you're going to save as. I've got a screenshot of the Microsoft PowerPoint save as dialog box up. I've got a file name that has no spaces or strange characters. I use dashes. You might use underscores. I'm going to set the file format to PDF. Now, you can choose either best for electronic distribution and accessibility or best for printing. I generally choose electronic distribution, especially if I've got links or videos inside a source document that I want to be operable within a PDF. But at the beginning of this workshop, I offered you a downloadable printable PDF of the accessibility checklist. And that one I saved as best for printing because I assume people are going to print them out and cut them up and then get out the really good gel pens with the glitter in and just go to town on those checklists. Nothing's 100% perfect. Here are some special cases to pay attention to with your source documents. A note about headings. You can go through an entire 56-page Word document and not use any headings in the document at all, and Word's accessibility checker will give you a pass. It'll say, hey, check mark, there's no headings in the document. But without headings, your document is practically inaccessible. It's going to pass the accessibility checker, but be really, really hard for people with disabilities to navigate. So you want to use them anyway. Slides and reading order. In PowerPoint, you have to set a reading order for each slide. You want to follow the instructions from the accessibility checker. The accessibility checker has had a lot of work go into it over the past 5 years. It's really gotten better. And the instructions are pretty easy to follow. As you step through each of the pieces that you put onto a slide, read them aloud to yourself. What order do you choose? And Excel has a couple of exceptions. So Excel accessibility exceptions 1 and 2. Excel is not using headings. It's a spreadsheet. Different rules apply for getting through a spreadsheet for assistive technology. And again, you don't need to add a table of contents in general. Different rules apply for spreadsheets when you're dealing with assistive technology. Excel, exception number 3, negative numbers and color in Excel. If you are working with folks who have any type of color blindness, they may not be able to see the color red. Color blindness affects 1 in every 10 people, which is actually kind of a lot of people. And Excel gives you the opportunity to display as a formatting choice negative numbers as either having a minus sign in front of them or having the number have nothing different from a positive number except be in red. So you don't want to choose that because if you are giving your document to people who cannot see red, shenanigans, accounting shenanigans will follow. You can also do it in parentheses. As long as you're not using color alone to indicate a semantic difference, then choose one of the things that is not simply dyeing the text red. Any of the others, totally fine. And even in Excel, you need alt text for your images. I discovered you can, in fact, put an image into an Excel spreadsheet if you really wanted to. You simply insert the picture, choose the picture format, and then it gives you an option for adding alt text, and you still need to add alt text to that image. If someone has a valid reason for adding images to a spreadsheet, they are still going to need to use alt text. They're still going to need to add alt text to those images. This is all a lot. I'm aware it's a ton of information. So we're going to finish things off with 4 for the door. 1, as Kathleen Hanna most famously said, resist the freak out. Just take one thing from this presentation and try it for 30 days. Maybe you are going to work on your alt text for the next 30 days. Write yourself a tiny post-it note and put that post-it note on the side of your laptop. And for the next 30 days, you're just thinking alt text, 1 to 3, active short sentences. I got this. At the end of 30 days, dispose your post-it, write yourself another post-it. Think, okay, the next 30 days, I'm really going to think about my headings. I'm never going to get through my magnum opus about cheeses unless I get started with those headings. And so that's your post-it for that month. Just work through it. One thing at a time, one step at a time. You are also welcome to join the accessibility team if you are a UVM staff, faculty, or student. We have a accessibility team over on Microsoft Teams. There's a link to join it in this presentation. And on that team, we host drop-in accessibility hours every Tuesday at 10 a.m. You can bring all kinds of accessibility questions to those drop-in hours. If no one has questions, I will just bring a random topic to think about and talk about, host a discussion, and really you can come in with any type of question that you want. If you are thinking of a question around accessibility, someone else is probably thinking of that same question. And what happens if you're both too shy to ask it? No one's going to get the answer to that question. So come to the drop-in accessibility hours and ask all your questions. We also have at this point in time upcoming accessibility workshops. If you are at UVM, you can attend one of these workshops. Otherwise, I will put cards here in the recording that link to the recordings for the other workshops. We're going to be talking about the PDF pipeline Friday, February 13th. It's a virtual workshop. We're also going to be talking more about images and alt text. Monday, February 23rd at 9 a.m. Again, another virtual workshop. Our last virtual workshop for the early spring is color contrast, and that is Wednesday, March 11th at 9 a.m. And then we are also setting up a in-person workshop in the Howe Library at UVM to create an accessible PDF from Word. It's going to be hands-on. We're going to take a tiny Word document and step all the way through making sure it's accessible. That one's going to be in person in the Howe Library. We'll have more details to come on the Office of Accessibility Services website. Put some further reading for you all. If you are a big accessibility nerd like myself, here are some things you might want to read up about, including more about shift left accessibility testing, including some math you can use to to actually demonstrate the savings that you can accrue from using shift left accessibility testing. An article on best practices for file naming conventions. Microsoft's own guide to the Accessibility Assistant. They're switching from calling it the Accessibility Checker to the Accessibility Assistant. It's still a good article that will answer a lot of your questions. There is also, Microsoft has put out a guide to creating an accessible PDF, like how to jump through all the hoops and over the hurdles. There's a fantastic guide to making accessible Word documents that export cleanly to PDF from the Massachusetts state government website. It's actually really, really good as a job aid. And I think I'm probably going to just direct people to it as a job aid rather than trying to make one of my own. And then there's also an article on making accessible PDFs from PowerPoint put out by the University of Washington. Again, they've done a really good job. So I'm just going to direct you there for further questions about how to work with those two particular types of documents. That's it from the Office of Accessibility Services. Thank you very much for making it all the way through this presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or concerns about this video, please drop them in the comments. The comments are monitored by our office staff, and we will get back to you. Thanks again for your time.